What she said about you behind closed doors shocked everyone. Listen carefully, because something happened in silence that was never meant to stay hidden. Behind closed doors, away from curious eyes and guarded smiles, words were spoken about you that carried unexpected weight. This was not casual conversation. This was not harmless opinion. The atmosphere shifted the moment your name entered the room. Even those present felt it, though they could not explain why. Archangel Michael's message reveals that when she began speaking, she intended to keep it light, controlled, safe. But truth has a way of pressing forward when it has waited too long. Her tone changed. Her posture tightened. And what followed shocked everyone listening. She admitted something she never planned to confess. She said you were not who she thought you were. For a long time, she told herself a convenient story about you. That you were predictable. That you were replaceable. That your absence would not echo. But behind closed doors, with no audience to impress, that illusion collapsed. She spoke of how your presence lingered even when you were gone. How silence felt louder after conversations with you ended. How she caught herself measuring others against a standard she never meant to set, your standard. This was not admiration spoken easily. It was frustration tangled with truth. She confessed that you see more than you say. That you notice shifts before words change. That you carry depth people feel but cannot define. And that unsettled her. Because people like you cannot be controlled by surface-level narratives. You cannot be dismissed once truly seen. There was a pause after she said your name. The message reveals that someone in the room asked why you affected her so deeply. Her answer came slower than expected. She said it was because you did not chase approval. Because you walked away when respect was missing. Because you did not beg to be understood, you remained yourself anyway. That was the moment the room fell quiet. You may not realize this, but your restraint has always been louder than other people's reactions. While others reacted impulsively, you observed. While others argued, you withdrew. While others tried to prove their worth, you moved forward in silence. And behind closed doors, she admitted that this unsettled her more than open confrontation ever could. She said she never knew where she stood with you. And that scared her. Archangel Michael's message makes it clear, this confession was not rooted in weakness, it was rooted in exposure. Your energy forced honesty out of places where deception once lived comfortably. You became a mirror she did not ask for, but could not avoid. She admitted something else too. She said that when others spoke against you, she defended you, then pretended she didn't. That she questioned narratives presented about you when they didn't align with what she felt in your presence. She told them you were misunderstood. Then laughed it off so no one would notice how serious she was. You were never as unaware as you thought. The message reveals that heaven noticed every time you chose silence over retaliation. Every time you absorbed misunderstanding without explaining yourself. Every time you let people believe whatever made them comfortable, while you carried the truth alone. These moments were not wasted. They were recorded. And now, movement has begun. You may feel it already. That subtle shift in how people respond to you. That pause before they speak. That curiosity mixed with caution. It's not coincidence. What was spoken behind closed doors is already changing how doors open in front of you. This is why you are being asked to stay grounded now. Archangel Michael's message emphasizes that not all revelations are meant to be confronted. Some are meant to work on your behalf while you remain steady. Your power has never been loud. It has always been internal. And that is why it carries authority. If this message resonates, take a quiet moment. Let it settle. Allow what aligns to stay, and release what does not. And if you feel guided, stay connected, because what is being revealed about you has only begun to surface. Because what she said next, when she thought no one would ever repeat it, will explain why certain outcomes are about to reverse in your favor. Something shifted after that first confession, something irreversible. The message carried by Archangel Michael reveals that once the silence broke, she could not stop herself anymore. What began as a guarded admission turned into a release she had held back for far too long. The room no longer felt neutral. It felt exposed. And everyone sensed that whatever followed would not be taken lightly. She leaned forward and lowered her voice. She said that you changed the way she saw herself. That admission startled even her. She explained that around you, her usual defenses stopped working. The stories she told others, and herself, lost their strength. She confessed that your calm presence forced her to confront parts of herself she preferred to keep hidden. Not because you attacked them, but because you refused to play along with illusions. You did not mirror her expectations. You did not react the way she predicted. And that disrupted her sense of control. She said you listened in a way that felt unsettling. Not waiting to respond. Not scanning for advantage. Just seeing. And being seen without permission can feel like judgment to those who hide behind performance. She admitted that sometimes she avoided you. Not out of indifference, but because your presence demanded honesty. The message makes this clear. She realized she could not manipulate you with emotion, silence, or confusion. You responded with boundaries instead of explanations. With distance instead of drama. And behind closed doors, she admitted that this made her feel powerless. Someone in the room asked whether she missed you. She didn't answer right away. When she finally spoke, she said something that no one expected. She said that losing access to you felt like losing stability. That even when you were quiet, your consistency created a sense of grounding she didn't realize she depended on. She said others spoke loudly, promised endlessly, and disappeared just as quickly. You, however, remained solid, whether present or absent. And that unsettled her more than abandonment ever could. Archangel Michael's message reveals that she confessed something deeper next. She said that when conflict arose, she expected you to chase clarity, to demand answers, to fight for explanation. But you didn't. You withdrew. You observed. And in that withdrawal, she felt something unfamiliar: consequence. Your silence was not confusion. It was discernment. She admitted that she replayed conversations with you in her mind, searching for moments where she could have said things differently. Not to repair the connection, but to preserve her sense of control. And when she realized that the door had closed quietly, without announcement, it shook her. She said you didn't punish. You didn't accuse. You simply left the energy where it belonged. The message emphasizes that this is why her words shocked everyone. They expected bitterness, resentment, dismissal. Instead, they heard respect mixed with regret. She admitted that you taught her something she wasn't ready to learn. That access to you was never guaranteed, and presence should never be taken for granted. You may not know this, but while you moved forward, she watched. She noticed how you stopped explaining yourself, how you conserved your energy, how you became more selective. And she told the room that this transformation made her realize she misjudged you completely. You were never passive. You were patient. And patience always reveals truth. Archangel Michael's message reveals that heaven observed this shift closely. Because when someone speaks truth in secret, it creates ripples that cannot be contained. What was said about you has already altered perceptions in places you are not present. Doors are being reconsidered. Opinions are being reevaluated. Not because you demanded it, but because truth demands alignment. This is why you may feel an unfamiliar calm lately. It is not detachment. It is alignment. You are no longer seeking validation from places that once confused you. You are standing firmly in who you are. And that stability is magnetic, even to those who once underestimated you. If this message resonates, remain steady. Let the unseen work unfold. Stay connected if you feel guided, because what was revealed behind closed doors is still unfolding. And what she admitted next, about why she couldn't fully let you go, will reveal how deeply your presence marked her path, and why the story between you is far from finished. What happened next was not planned. It wasn't rehearsed. And it certainly wasn't meant to be shared. The message carried through Archangel Michael reveals that after admitting how deeply you affected her, she tried to regain composure. She laughed softly, as if to minimize what had just been exposed. But truth, once released, rarely allows retreat. The room had already shifted. And everyone felt it. She said there was something about you she couldn't explain to others. Not charm. Not status. Not words. She said it was your absence of desperation. She admitted that you never tried to convince her of your worth. You never over-explained your intentions. You never competed for attention. And in a world where most people chase validation loudly, your restraint stood out in ways she was unprepared for. She said you made her question why she was drawn to chaos before. That confession changed everything. Someone asked if she thought you knew how powerful you were. She paused. And then she shook her head. She said no. Because if you truly knew, you would never have tolerated half of what you endured. You would have walked away sooner. And that realization carried weight. Archangel Michael's message makes this clear. Your patience was mistaken for tolerance. Your empathy was mistaken for availability. And your silence was mistaken for weakness. But behind closed doors, she admitted that she learned too late that you were none of those things. She said you were disciplined. That word landed heavily in the room. She explained that while others reacted emotionally, you regulated yourself. While others chased reassurance, you grounded yourself. While others sought power externally, you carried it internally. And that level of self-mastery intimidated her more than confrontation ever could. She confessed something else then, something she hadn't even admitted to herself. She said she tried to provoke reactions from you. Not out of cruelty, but out of curiosity. She wanted to see if you would break character. If you would raise your voice. If you would fight to be chosen. But you didn't. You stayed composed. And when you sensed misalignment, you stepped back. That restraint made her feel exposed. The message reveals that she told the room she felt safest and most unsettled around you at the same time. Safe because you didn't manipulate. Unsettled because you couldn't be controlled. You didn't feed insecurity. You didn't reward inconsistency. And that forced her to confront her own patterns. She said you didn't mirror her wounds. You reflected her truth. And that's when the room went completely silent. Because everyone understood then, this wasn't about attraction. This was about transformation. Your presence disrupted cycles she had normalized for years. And when you left, the absence wasn't emotional, it was structural. Something in her internal world lost balance. Archangel Michael's message emphasizes that this is why she couldn't move on easily. Not because she wanted you back, but because you represented a version of herself she hadn't become yet. You embodied stability she hadn't learned to hold. And rather than rise to meet it, she distanced herself. She admitted she spoke about you more than she let on. Not always kindly. Not always honestly. Sometimes she minimized your impact to protect her ego. Sometimes she reframed the story to avoid accountability. But behind closed doors, she finally told the truth. You changed her trajectory more than anyone else in recent memory. You may feel this now as a subtle validation. Not satisfaction. Not pride. But confirmation. The message reveals that heaven does not overlook quiet integrity. Every time you chose self-respect over attachment, alignment over approval, you strengthened something within you that cannot be taken. And now, those choices are beginning to echo outward. This is why new conversations feel different. Why people approach you with more caution. Why your absence creates curiosity instead of dismissal. Your energy has shifted, not because you tried to change, but because you honored yourself. If this message resonates, remain present. Stay aware. Let the truth continue to unfold without interference. And if you feel guided, stay connected. Because what she revealed next, about the moment she realized she had underestimated you completely, will explain why a turning point is approaching that cannot be reversed. The atmosphere grew heavier after that silence, not uncomfortable, but undeniable. What was unfolding could no longer be dismissed as reflection or regret. It had become revelation. The message conveyed through Archangel Michael reveals that someone finally asked the question everyone had been circling but avoiding. They asked her when she realized she had underestimated you. Not if, but when. And for the first time that night, she didn't hesitate. She said it was the moment you stopped explaining yourself. She described how, before that shift, you still offered clarity. You still gave the benefit of the doubt. You still tried to make things make sense for both sides. But then something changed. Your words became fewer. Your responses calmer. Your energy more contained. And she felt it immediately. She said it wasn't anger that worried her. It was certainty. She realized then that you had made a decision internally long before she noticed externally. And that realization unsettled her deeply. Because people who reach certainty don't announce it, they act from it. She admitted that after that moment, she watched you differently. She noticed how you no longer reacted to provocation. How you didn't seek reassurance. How you didn't linger where effort wasn't mutual. And behind closed doors, she confessed that this shift made her feel like she was slowly losing access to something rare. Archangel Michael's message emphasizes this truth. When someone no longer needs validation, their presence becomes unmistakable. You were no longer available for confusion. no longer accessible through inconsistency. And she knew it. She said she tested the distance. She waited to see if you would reach out. To see if you would question the silence. To see if you would return to old patterns. But you didn't. And that was the moment she realized she had misread you from the beginning. She told the room that she thought you were patient because you lacked options. That you were quiet because you were unsure. That you stayed because you didn't know your worth. Saying this aloud shocked even her, because once spoken, the truth stood exposed. You stayed because you chose to. And when the choice changed, so did everything else. The message reveals that she admitted something few people ever say honestly: she didn't expect consequences from you. She expected understanding, flexibility, emotional labor. What she didn't expect was self-respect without resentment. You didn't punish. You didn't blame. You simply withdrew your energy. And that withdrawal forced everyone in the room to reflect on how often they confuse kindness with permanence. She confessed that your departure triggered something in her that success, attention, and distraction couldn't fill. Not because you were irreplaceable, but because you represented a standard she hadn't met yet. You were living in alignment, while she was still negotiating with comfort. Archangel Michael's message makes it clear: this is why your name carried weight when spoken. This is why the room responded the way it did. People recognized the truth in her words because they had felt your presence too. They had noticed your restraint, your consistency, your quiet authority. Someone asked whether she believed you would ever return. She shook her head slowly. She said not in the way people expect returns to happen. She said that if you ever crossed paths again, it would be as someone who had outgrown the situation entirely. Someone who no longer needed closure. Someone who had already moved forward. And that realization humbled her. The message reveals that heaven honors this kind of growth. When you choose alignment over attachment, you don't lose, you reposition. And from that position, clarity arrives without force. This is why you are being asked to remain centered now. Not detached. Not closed. But grounded. Your energy is setting a new baseline. And those who meet you from this point forward will feel it immediately. If this message resonates, allow it to settle without rushing to interpret outcomes. Stay connected if you feel guided. Because what she finally admitted next, about why your absence changed how others speak about you, will reveal how your story is quietly being rewritten in rooms you've never entered. What she admitted last was the part that no one expected, and the part that changed everything. The message carried through Archangel Michael reveals that after speaking about your restraint, your certainty, and your withdrawal, she finally addressed the effect your absence had on others. Not emotionally. Not sentimentally. Structurally. She said the way people spoke about you changed the moment you were no longer present to define yourself. At first, she thought your absence would make you fade. She was wrong. She admitted that once you stepped away, conversations about you became more careful, more deliberate. People paused before making assumptions. Some corrected themselves mid-sentence. Others grew quiet altogether. It was as if your presence had left an imprint that couldn't be overridden. She said people started asking questions. Not about what you did, but about why. Why you left without drama. Why you never defended yourself. Why you didn't come back to clarify your intentions. And in those questions, your integrity began to speak louder than explanations ever could. Archangel Michael's message emphasizes this truth. When someone moves in alignment, their absence reveals their character more clearly than their presence ever did. You didn't need to manage perception. You didn't need to control narrative. The truth stabilized on its own. She confessed that some people tried to rewrite the story about you, but it didn't stick. The details didn't align. The energy didn't match. And eventually, the inconsistencies exposed themselves. What was once easy to dismiss became difficult to ignore. She said your silence forced others to reflect. Not on you, but on themselves. People began questioning how they treated you, what they expected from you, what they took for granted. And she admitted that watching this unfold made her realize something unsettling. You had been a quiet standard bearer, not a participant in chaos. You didn't compete. You didn't perform. You modeled. And models don't need to argue. The message reveals that this is why doors are shifting now. Opportunities reconsidered. Conversations reframed. You may not see it yet, but your name is being spoken with a different tone. Not curiosity. Not skepticism. Respect. She admitted that she underestimated the long-term impact of your choices. She thought walking away would make you smaller in the story. Instead, it clarified the story entirely. It revealed who had substance, and who relied on proximity for relevance. Archangel Michael's message makes this clear. This phase of your life is not about return. It is about recognition. Not applause, but alignment. You are being repositioned in ways that require patience, not pursuit. This is why you may feel called to remain still now. Not stagnant. Not uncertain. But anchored. You are no longer reacting to old dynamics. You are no longer explaining your worth. You are standing where truth can reach you without distortion. And from this place, what is meant for you will recognize you without confusion. She ended her confession by saying something quietly, almost to herself. She said she wished she had met you after learning who she needed to become. That sentence stayed in the room long after the conversation ended. Because everyone understood what it meant. You were not late. You were not mistimed. You were exact. The message reveals that heaven does not rush transformation. It reveals it. And you are now entering a season where your past restraint becomes your present authority. Where your silence becomes your credibility. Where your alignment opens paths that effort never could. If this message resonates, let it settle deeply. There is nothing you need to chase. Nothing you need to prove. Stay connected if you feel guided. Because the next revelation won't be about what was said behind closed doors. It will be about what opens in front of you now that the truth can no longer be denied.